Welcome into a brand new edition of WarUp on the WPIAL. Greg Warnock alongside Jeff Upson, breaking things down for you from not only the redemption from this past weekend, a very successful event able to be pulled off at State College, but also the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic. Didn't really get a chance to talk about the Classic at the end of last week like we were hoping, Jeff, just because the redemption just kind of butted us up with time.
Yeah, I mean, you know how busy I was for the redemption, and unfortunately for us, we weren't able to talk about the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic too much. But we are going to go into detail and go over some of the results from the WPIAL versus Maryland dual meet, and also the USA versus PA, which was won by PA in dramatic fashion. So I'm excited to break that down. We're also going to talk a little bit about college commitments and where some of our top seniors are going to college from the WPIAL. And we're hoping to be joined by Cole Spencer from Pine-Richland, who was very busy on Saturday, came up to State College after winning. I don't know what the award was technically called, but that's why we're going to have him on to talk about it.
The Willie Thrower Award is from what I was learned, but yeah, I think he spent more time in the car than he did at State College, just driving there and back because of how quickly things got moving for him as far as that goes. But we really appreciated him at least making the drive up to participate in the event. But as far as the Classic goes, let's talk a little bit about that. And we'll start with the undercard. WPIAL takes care of business against Team Maryland 41-6. And this was just a dominating performance up and down by the WPIAL.
Yeah, and I will say that the Maryland team wasn't quite what they wanted it to be, right? The Maryland team, they didn't have a season, so it was hard to get guys, and I know they kind of struggled to get some guys committed. So I had a lot of Maryland faithful contacting me beforehand and saying, "Hey, Jeff, this isn't the always the best that we have to offer. We are better than what we are advertised as, or at least what the results were in the Classic. But the bottom line was we knew coming into this that the WPIAL team was going to be really, really good, right? When you have guys that have been in the national rankings such as Isaiah Vance, Carter Dybert, Ethan Berg, you're going to have guys that are putting up points and putting up a lot of points, and that's what we saw. We saw a lot of bonus points. We saw a lot of falls. And all of a sudden, it got out of hand, right? And it really started off right with a bang, and that was Isaiah Vance getting the pin over Keontae Hamilton, a guy who was supposed to do double duty. He was going to wrestle for both Maryland and Team USA, but unfortunately, he was banged up. And he couldn't wrestle against Nate Schoen and Team USA. But, that was a wild match back and forth. Isaiah Vance was able to get the fall in 341 over Keontae Hamilton. It was a great match with a lot of scrambles. For a heavyweight match, it was a lot of fun. But it really Greg, it was all across the board. It was just fall after fall after fall. It was just win after win after win.
Yeah, and you look at the couple of close matches. I think you thought Vance was going to be one of them, but he just dominated in that second period to get the fall. Ethan Bergen had one of two losses for the WPIAL, but that was against a nationally ranked opponent as well, and probably the best matchup in this WPIAL versus Team Maryland.
Yeah, I would agree. Cooper Flynn is one of the best in the nation. He, he's going to Virginia Tech. He wrestled in the Olympic, the last chance qualifier a week prior to that. He won the Super 32. He's a stud, right? So we knew that it was going to be a tight match with Ethan Bergic. Carter Dybert.
And he took him to overtime.
Yeah, he took him to overtime. So he pushed the pace with him. It was a really good match, and it was a close match, right? But you look at some of the other results. Carter Dybert gets a fall in the first period. Again, not totally surprised by that. Jabari Pinkney was not maybe one of the best guys on the Maryland team, and Carter was one of the best guys on the WPIAL team, so no surprise there. And Ian Oswalt gets a decision 6-3 over Nico D'Amico. Kenny Dushek gets a really tough win over Matt Lawrence of Maryland, 2-1 in tiebreaker in the second tiebreaker. Really good win for Kenny.
Yeah, and it just from there just continued the roll with Altieri getting a win, Linzenbigler with a tech, Cole Spencer then with a fall, and then Sammy Starr and Trent Schulteis back-to-back decisions before Justin Hart gets a loss 6-1 in a tough one with Liam Kammerer, and then Logan Harmon finishes it off. I got to tell you though, you just look at this WPIAL lineup and it's just so strong from top to bottom, which it usually is every year. Don't get me wrong, but this year it seemed like it really stuck out.
Yeah, and I will correct you. It wasn't Justin Hart. I know on there it says Justin Hart, but it was Tyler Rohaley, who lost to Kammerer. Justin Hart was pulled up to the PA versus USA team because Drew Cleary had to pull out of Team PA. So that's, shout out to Chris Hart, and we're rocking the Hampton Talbots shirt here, Greg. Big fans of Hampton. So, but yeah, overall it was just complete domination from the WPIAL, and again, something that we weren't necessarily surprised by. I had some folks say, "Were you surprised it was that lopsided?" And I thought it would be not as lopsided, but I certainly thought that it was going to be a pretty dominant win for the WPIAL. I just didn't realize that Cole Spencer was going to get a fall over Harrison Trahan, who's a PA kid. Of course, Isaiah Vance getting the fall over Keontae Hamilton. Those are huge points. And of course, some of those wins that could have went either way, like Kenny Dushek, or even Cooper Flynn and Ethan Bergen. So, but just a complete dominating performance from the WPIAL, Greg.
And then that brought in the matchup of Team PA versus Team USA. And first and foremost, before anything else, the question was, will the girls match count towards the points? And it did. So Team PA does get the victory over Team USA, which hasn't happened since what year? 2012?
2012.
Yeah, 2012. It was a 27-23 win for Team PA, and it was helped by Montana DeLauder of Gettysburg getting a fall over Adriana Turner in the opening match for the girls' side.
Yeah, so that was definitely an area of contention of whether we were going to count the girls' points or not, and it had been sort of decided beforehand that, okay, well, this is so in previous times with the Classic, we've had girls freestyle matches, and of course the freestyle matches we didn't count towards Team PA or Team USA, but in this circumstance, Montana DeLauder and Adrena Turner were two wrestlers, 1 and 2 in the nation. One represented California, one represented PA. So it was a no-brainer to have a Team PA versus Team USA match. They were photographed together as Team USA, Team PA. Like, they were part of the teams, right? So what came, it was kind of the hiccup was, and you'll see on Flow Arena. So in Flow Arena, it has like Ethan Bergen's name's not on there. It has Justin Hart in there, not Tyler Rohaley. But it also has the girls match as a almost separate event. It's not tied in with the USA versus PA quote all-star match. So that's why it was really confusing for folks watching at home of whether, what the score was. And of course, then we had an injury default for Keontae Hamilton, and those points weren't put up on the board yet. So it was kind of an issue that we had with Flow Arena and getting the information out there. But all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, PA's in this match, and all of a sudden Wyatt Henson's, his decision was the difference, right? And we asked him afterwards if he realized that going into it, and he was like, nope, I had no idea. So it was kind of cool to see that because, had he known that all of it, was riding on him, I don't know, maybe he wouldn't have been able to pull it out.
Well, he gets it done, but in addition to that, we saw a couple of number ones go down as well. Brett Unger gets a win, but most importantly, one of the friends of our show, Alejandro Herrera Rondon, AHR, gets it done over Victor Ivanovich, 6-4, and AHR takes that number one spot in the nation.
Yeah, there was so many good matches here, and I'll put the final one up here, but Brett Unger, obviously over Richie Figueroa was the biggest upset, just because Richie Figs was the number one pound for pound guy in the nation, not in his weight, pound for pound, the best guy in the nation, and Brett Unger beat him, right? Of course he did, right? He beats Gary Steen, he beats Mason Gibson. Why not take out the number one pound for pound kid in all of the land, right? So that was huge. But of course, Alejandro getting the win over Victor Ivanovich was very, very big. It's the first time in his career he was number one in the nation. It was a big win for him. I know he was really excited to get that win because it ended his high school career undefeated, three-time state champ, and oh, by the way, number one in the nation. So I think it just kind of solidified his legacy from Seneca Valley. So that was probably one of the bigger wins there, Greg.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Other WPIAL wrestlers, Joey Fisher of South Park drops a 7-3 decision to Drake Ayala. Dylan Chappell, a 12-4 major decision loss to Chance Lamar. And then for, you mentioned Wyatt Henson, he gets the win 3-2 over Caleb Rathjen. And in a move where Rathjen comes in as a late fill-in. AJ Corrado dropped a 9-1 loss to Enrique Minguea. Luca Augustine, a big 5-3 overtime win over Dylan Walker. Walker is the guy who beat Rune Lawrence at the Powerade. So, and then Justin Hart, a 13-5 loss to Jackson Smith. But all those WPIAL wrestlers and the WPIAL team was that strong down below. So that just tells you how strong the WPIAL was this year. But overall, just a great showing by those guys in the WPIAL on Team PA.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say is, Joey Fisher wrestled Drake Ayala really, really strong. Number one guy in the nation, and Joey Fisher really pushed the action with him, losing 7-3. Dylan Chappell just ran against a buzzsaw with Chance Lamar, who's just a stud from Oregon. And, there was a couple other matches I thought could have went either way. Carter Young, Brock McMillan, that was a 3-1 win for Carter Young. He won the Outstanding Wrestler Award for Team USA, having beat a three-time state champion. And, of course, Wyatt Henson over Caleb Rathjen, who's really, they're going to be future teammates. So it was very interesting because had Shane Van Ness been in the lineup, there's a good chance Shane Van Ness gets a win over Wyatt Henson and changes the complexity of the match. Now, of course, Paddy Gallagher was supposed to be in at 160. Enrique Mongoya takes over for him. And he actually did get 6 points on the board for Team USA because of the injury default over AJ Corrado. So AJ was down 9-1, but, Corrado gives up the injury default because he's unable to continue. So you almost had a wash between 285 and 160 with Nate Schoen getting an injury default and Mongoya also getting the default. So Luke Augustine's match with Dylan Walker really became a critical match because that was an overtime match. Dylan Walker didn't have the best of Ohio State tournaments, finishes 5th. Luke Augustine, of course, had a great PA tournament, finishing 1st. These are two guys that we thought we could have seen at the Powerade tournament, but unfortunately Luca is unable to go. So he beats the Powerade champion. He beats the guy that beat the only, the AA state champ. So, that was a big win for Luca. But overall, just Team PA was somehow able to find a win. Jake Lucas had a huge win over Emmanuel Skillings, 11-4. And Justin Hart, it was a major decision, but he didn't just fall over for Jackson Smith, who was one of the top guys in the nation. Hart was a guy who, wasn't even sure if he was going to be on the team, until last second.
And then in all, PA does get the win, though, and just an exciting time at the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic. And the event may not have been like it was in previous years, but still a job well done by the committee and the crew to pull it off and be able to still have this opportunity to get these guys a chance to wrestle.
Yeah, it was certainly a lot of challenges, and especially after last year, after having to cancel last year, I know we were just obviously disappointed and devastated that we weren't able to have that. But 47 years running. And I've been fortunate to be a part of that for a few years now. And, I'm just looking forward to many, many other years and, returning to the field house, in that atmosphere and seeing people with their programs, filling out the scores. And, it was definitely a different type of atmosphere for sure. But I think the wrestling action itself did not suffer whatsoever, just because of where we were. It was still, a great atmosphere and the wrestling was just as phenomenal, if not even better than some of the years past.
Speaking of great atmospheres, this past weekend at State College at the Redemption, one heck of an atmosphere that took place. And Jeff, could it have gone any better in your head the way it went this past weekend?
I mean, yeah, you can always go better. I mean, there's always room for improvement. You never do everything right, and yeah, absolutely. I'm never satisfied. Let me just put it to you that way. I'm never satisfied. I always think of what can we do better, what can we do bigger next time. You look at True Power, to the redemption duel, right? Almost, 9 months, 10 months since that, and we looked at it and said, okay, what can we do a little bit better? Production wise, show wise, it was, just a great atmosphere. We had the lights, the smoke. I think, for the kids, for the wrestlers themselves, it was very, very unique and very cool, right? We didn't quite get any of that at the state tournament this year, so it was definitely important for me to have, the bells and whistles, as I like to say, with the lights, the smoke, the announcer, the after match, post match interview right off the mat. Those are all things that I think set us apart from the rest of the field here, when it comes to hosting events. I think that's what puts us in a different league, just because we put in all of the work, from top to bottom, all the details, to the refs, to the everything we have there. It's all kind of, synchronized, and it just all works together well. And, it was a lot of fun. The wrestling was really, really good. It was a time for some folks to get some redemption, and, we saw some guys and girls get some redemption in a big way, Greg. And, I know you were on the call with Chris Smith, and I was kind of running around, kind of crazy, making sure everything was right. But, from everything that I saw, a lot of good wrestling, a lot of good action. Some guys came out on top that wanted to finish strong, and yeah, I was definitely satisfied with the way it turned out, but it's never quite good enough, if that makes sense.
Well, it was one heck of an event, Jeff, so don't be so hard on yourself. But, you look at, the wrestling that took place, and the first match only goes 42 seconds. You got to think, oh, no. Josh Harkless gets injured, injures his shoulder against Nate Wickersham. So the opening takedown for Wickersham, and Harkless just unable to continue to go. And it's a shame, too, because for someone like Wickersham, he was looking to, who hasn't committed to a college yet, he wanted to just show, what he could do and get that redemption out there one last time. But he does get the win to start things off. And then Regan Lockney comes in, filling in last second for Cole Urbis and wrestling Ben Hobart of Palisades. And Hobart came out, got the opening takedown, and it looked like a match in the second period before Hobart ends up getting the fall in the third. So just like that, green and black were tied at 6.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, so breaking down kind of where the matches started, and of course we started at 220 with that unfortunate injury, and I kept on apologizing to Josh Harkless. I'm like, I'm sorry, man, you came all this way and you got injured, and it's it's no big deal. It happens. It's wrestling. But that, I think that would have ended up being a really good match. Wickersham did get the opening takedown, but of course Josh Harkless was a state finalist this year. He beat the state champion Jake Lucas, who we just talked about, and had a huge win for Team PA over Team USA. So, look at how close these guys are. And Harkless is a guy who was right there with the best of them. And I know he wanted some redemption. He's going to RIT. Nate Wickersham, on the other hand, he is uncommitted, but, I know he's got some looks and he's got some offers, but I think the redemption duel really opened up a lot of folks' eyes, even in that short time period, because it kind of looked at his career. It made folks look at his career, finishing 8th last year, at 182 pounds, bumping up to 220 or 215, where, he ends up taking 3rd in the state, only losing to the state champion and the state runner-up in the postseason. So, Wickersham's a guy I think most college guys are going to want to get. And I think you even said that on the broadcast, Greg. You said, an 8th and 3rd in the state, someone's going to want to get this guy.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. And talking about, we just mentioned Lockney. He's a guy who, we were talking about on the drive up, Jeff. He's so improved from freshman to senior year.
12. So his freshman year, he was 12-28 at Bishop Mcdevitt High School in District 12. 12-28. That's a hard way to come back as a freshman. You're thinking, should I even be wrestling varsity? And you have a losing record, and you end up turning into 3 years later a state medal in Hershey, and it's just incredible. He beats Matt Romanelli from Downingtown West, who's going to Columbia. He beats him twice, once in the state tournament, once in the super region. It just was a great performance by him. He's also unsigned, so it was a chance for him to kind of show what he had. And like you said, against Ben Halbert, he made it a match in the second period. Halbert kind of, he's the real deal, right? He's a guy who's going to the Citadel, didn't quite have the state tournament that he wanted, which was a whole part of our theme here at the Redemption Duel. And, he turned it on, but Lockney, hey, this is a guy who I think would fit in a lot of good places here. I definitely think that a lot of guys are going to be looking at him and saying, okay, how do I want to get this guy on my team?
So then we moved to 133 pounds, Luke Simcox and Gabe Gramley. One of the only matches that was a rematch. Luke Simcox beat Gramley 3-1 in a January dual meet, and Simcox gets the win, a solid 3-0 win, an escape in a second and a takedown in the third, and he just controlled the entire match.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit closer than a 3-0. I think, Gramley was in on, he was close to getting a takedown at one point. I don't know if you called the match, Greg, so you'd probably know better than I do.
Yeah, Simcox he fought off a lot of good shots, and he was able to attack when he could. And I thought Simcox looked really strong in that match.
Watching it back, I thought it was a methodical win by Simcox. Right, he kind of was like a surgeon. He was very specific in his shot attacks and very specific in his scoring. And like you said, he had to fight off kind of relentless attacks from Gabe Gramley, a senior who's going to Pitt. A freshman from Central Mountain in Simcox. As you mentioned, these two wrestled 3-1 in overtime in January, and Simcox after the match said, hey, I improved. I didn't let it get to overtime this time, and I beat him 3-0. But Gramley, I know, not satisfied with his performance. He's going to Pitt next year. But a good match in the lighter weights for us at 133 pounds.
And then 143, this was a rematch of sorts, I guess. Federici beat Swisher in freestyle. Now, Swisher was up big early, and then Federici comes back to win by criteria, 11-11. And this was looking like it could be a close one. The first two periods, it was scoreless at the end of one. Swisher able to get a reversal in the second, and then Federici decides to go neutral, and then Swisher just hit the switch. 4 takedowns and a pair of near fall points, and wins by a 12-3 major decision.
If Jude Swisher wrestled like he did in the third period against Federici at the state tournament, I think he could have been a state champion, or would have been a state champion, to be honest with you. I mean, he looked phenomenal in that third period, Greg, and I agree with you. The first period, you're like, okay, it's kind of I wouldn't say a feeling out period, but, there's a little bit on the line here. Federici's like, I beat him in freestyle. I was down big, and I came back, Swisher's thinking, okay, I got up big on him and then kind of let off the gas. Maybe I got really tired. So maybe kind of being a little bit more conservative with his attacks. But like you said, after a scoreless first period, Jude Swisher gets a reversal. And all of a sudden, I think the momentum starts going his way. The third period, though, it was like Swisher was a whole different wrestler. I mean, and it's not like Federici just got bad after 2 periods. It was a Swisher just went up to another level. And he had talked to me after the match about, the match that he had with Federici, and he was like, I just got so tired after that first period, and I just got worn out that he had nothing left in that freestyle match. So, and of course, he's not cutting any weight. He's going up. He wrestled, let's not forget, he wrestled 132. It was 134 with a weight allowance, but he's wrestling up to 143 right now. So, I think he was just kind of wanted to wrestle the best, and he wanted to get a little redemption for himself for that match, and he certainly did.
118 was the next match, and Jack Caruso, a guy that's familiar here for the WPIAL because Vinny Kilkiri had dropped that loss in overtime where many thought Jack Caruso stalled that third period. Jack Caruso looked strong in this one. Cohen Baney and Jack Caruso were scoreless after one. Baney gets the escape in the second, and then Jack Caruso turns it on. 2-2 to end the second period, an escape and a takedown in the third, and he was able to take away a 7-2 win.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's finally, for at least folks out in the WPIAL, because he gets a lot of hate out here in the WPIAL. And, I think Jack Caruso, definitely got some fans out this way after his performance at the Redemption Duel, because he didn't look like he did against Vinny Kilcarry. He was pushing pace. He was scoring. He was getting turns, and I thought Jack Russo looked great. He was probably one of the guys I left very impressed with. Thinking that, okay, he kind of, not saying outperformed what I thought, but he just really set the bar high, because Cohen Baney is no joke. And for his part, I thought Cohen Baney wrestled a little timid, a little, he just wasn't getting to his attacks. He wasn't shooting, and he was letting Jack Russo kind of dictate the pace. With a guy like Jack Russo, who's so slick, he's so, he's so good at getting to his attacks, and then all of a sudden he gets a turn on top, and that's a hard, kind of deficit to get out of. Look at Vinny Kilcarry. I mean, he couldn't get out of the deficit, and he's one of the best in the nation. So for Cohen Baney, I think he has some things he needs to work on, and Jack Russo, I think, continuing to work his gas tank and continue to get his conditioning up, because that was the one question mark everyone had coming into the Redemption was, okay, what type of gas tank does he have in this match? And I was very impressed with his.
Yeah, and that's something he talked about working on over the last month to come up to the Redemption Duels. Then we moved to 157. Eric Gibson, who didn't get a chance to wrestle in the postseason, he gets his chance to wrestle here, and he started out against Dalton Gimber. It looked like, oh man, Gibson's going to run away with this. A pair of takedowns in the first, an escape from Gimber in the second, another takedown by Gibson. He's up 6-3 after 2, and he takes bottom and escapes, so it's 7-3. And again, it looks like he's just going to run away with it. Then Gimber gets a pair of takedowns and makes it interesting. An 8-7 final for Gibson. But, I think he wrestled great for 2 periods, and May just ran out of gas a little bit.
Yeah, and in talking to him, I don't think he cut the weight too well. And of course, look, he hasn't had to have a weigh in quite a while. So, the 157 was a little tougher for him. And, Dalton Gimber, like you said, he took advantage of that tiredness that Gibson had in the third period. Those first 2 periods, and Eric Knopfler and I talked about this. Gibson is just kind of relentless, but when he does step off the gas like he did in that third period, all of a sudden he's vulnerable. And it's not taking anything away from Dalton Gimber, because I thought he wrestled really well. It's just that we're accustomed to seeing Eric Gibson put up massive amounts of points on people, he just looked flat tired. That's what it was. He just looked dead tired. You could tell in those last 45 seconds of the third period, you're like, is he going to make it? Is he going to be able to withstand the attacks? Because it's almost like, the deficit was 7-3, and all of a sudden you're like, can Gimber really, chip away at this and get the win here? So, I'm excited for the Gimber twins. They both lost, but I think they both have a lot to be excited about with going to F&M and how their seasons ended at Hamburg. So, Gibson, I think he has a lot to take away from this, especially on weight cutting, but he'll be back, and I'm sure he'll be back a little bit stronger.
Then moved on to 143 pounds. 2 guys who were in the same weight, not only at the state tournament, also at the super region, but never wrestled each other. And Eric Alderfer and Connor Hare. Hare finished in 5th place in the state, Alderfer in 4th place, but it was the 5th place finisher who gets it done, gets a reversal in the second, gets a takedown in the third, and he wins a solid 4-0 victory.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this, I think, on the ride up and also on the broadcast was, the 8-man brackets, there's eight wrestlers in a bracket in the super region, 8 wrestlers in the bracket at the state tournament. So you would think if you're going to be in the same tournament twice with only 8 wrestlers in it, there's a pretty good chance you're going to wrestle each other, right? And that wasn't the case here. Their common opponent was David Kreidler from Allentown Central Catholic. Alderfer beats him. Hare loses to him in the super region. And then, of course, at the state tournament, Connor Hare drops that tough match to Ian Oswald. He comes down into the 5th place match and gets a win. But, you kind of thought, all right, Hare I think he was right there with him. And that's what happens in the state tournament. When you have the 4th place finisher and the 5th place finisher not go head to head, you can only look at common opponents. It's hard to say, who would actually come out on top. But in this case, I thought Hare looked really good for a freshman. He I don't know if you remember how tough on top he was. He was
Oh
throwing
yeah.
in boots from, from left field, and he looked so just calm and composed throwing those boots in and just riding legs really, really tough. So you can tell he works on a lot of leg riding. And it showed because he just controlled our Durfer, who's a very scrappy, kind of hard nosed, in your face wrestler. He never goes away. Just keep on thinking back to that match he had with Nate Roth from Latrobe at the Powerade tournament, and just was just relentless. So I think it's a testament to Connor Hare and where he's at to beat him 4-0, because I think both these young wrestlers are very, very good and poised to do very well.
Then we go to 185 pounds, where we get a WPIAL wrestler, the first one, Sammy Starr of Kiski. But he drops a decision 5-1 to Cole Reese, who looked very solid in doing so. A takedown and 2 near fall points in the first period for Reese. And then he gets an escape in the second. Starr does get an escape in the third, but nothing else. A 5-1 solid win for Reese.
Yeah, so you look at it and you say there's a few things here to unwrap and unpackage. One is Sammy Starr was a 172 pounder, and when he wanted the match of redemption, he said, "I'll wrestle anywhere between 170 and 190." That just shows you his mindset. He doesn't care. He wanted a chance to wrestle the best. Well, I did him a solid and I got him the best. Cole Reese is one of the best in the nation at 182 pounds. So, there was that, right? You're giving up a little bit of weight, and you're also, you're also going against a guy who's really tough.
And he was dealing with an injury too.
Oh, that was my second point is that he was dealing with a serious elbow injury, that not a lot of people kind of were privy to, but he was banged up, the elbow was hurting him, and man, I think that showed, and I think that was the issue that we saw here at the Redemption. Not saying that Cole Reese was not. I mean, trust me, Cole Reese was very, very impressive, but I don't know if that was the Sammy Starr that we're accustomed to seeing. But man, Cole Reese just he was on fire, and I think he had a lot to prove in that.
Yeah, he was. He felt slighted by not getting the PA choice for the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic, so he used that in that matchup. Wanted to show everybody what he could do. So then we go to the girls' match at 110 pounds, where it is Kiera Kohler, a 6-0 win, a dominating win over Madison Packer. Packer had beaten Kohler twice already that season before, so talk about redemption. Kohler gets it. Takedown in the first, a reversal in the second, and a takedown in the third, and she was solid in that win.
Yeah, so I mean, the best match, the reactions was her and her mother hugging after she won, because it was almost like she just won the Super Bowl. I mean, she was so excited, and rightfully so. She beat Maddie Packer, who had beaten her twice at the girls' state tournament. Once in overtime and once a close decision. So that is a very that's a very impressive win for her to flip the script on her, and the redemption was true, and it was on full display for Kiera Kohler. She was so happy. I saw her afterwards out in the hall, and she was so happy, and that just, again, not to be cheesy, but that made me feel awesome, to see that. And that, again, not taking anything away from Maddie Packer. I got to know her a little bit. I got to talk to her for a while. She's a very bright young girl, and I think she's going to have a very bright future, potentially at Lock Haven, depending on where she ends up going. But yeah, it was just a lot of fun to see that type of reaction afterwards, especially losing to someone twice. I mean, you've probably lost to the same wrestler twice. I've lost to the same wrestler twice. I've not always had that third chance to wrestle them back, and Kiera was able to get that chance.
So then we got the second WPIAL wrestler onto the mat at 285 pounds, Billy Mcchesney of Greensburg, Salem, taking on Riley Robel of Bishop Mcdevitt. And Robel able to ride Mcchesney for the entire second period, gets an escape in the third, then he gets a stalling point before getting the takedown. Mcchesney tried his deep double, and Robel able to just slide him right by, get the two. A solid 4-0 win for Robel.
Yeah, I mean, so I kind of talked about Jack Russo and how impressive I was with him. The same was with Riley Robel, because I mean he looked really sharp against Billy Mcchesney, and Billy Mcchesney is one of the best. And he wrestled smart. Robel did. I mean he wrestled his match. He controlled center. He controlled the ties. He kind of just dictated the movement a little bit, and was able to stop Mcchesney, who's a very agile heavyweight. But Robel just, you can tell he's just a big time football player, because he kind of just has a great stance, great movement, great hand fighting. So I was very impressed with him, just because of how good Billy Mcchesney is. And they both lost to Nathan Taylor, so I think that kind of puts into perspective how good Nathan Taylor really is.
114 pounds was an exciting matchup. Carson Wagner against Hunter Robinson. After a scoreless first period, Wagner gets the escape in the second. Robinson gets a takedown. He's up 2-1, and then he goes on bottom in the third and gets right to work. An escape and a takedown. Wagner gets a reversal, but Robinson gets one back. And in all, Hunter Robinson gets some redemption, a 7-3 win over Carson Wagner.
Yeah, so two guys that came into the state tournament, number one in the state. Robinson, who just had a great super region, just kind of, I'm not saying falls apart, but he takes some losses that he probably wouldn't have taken the week prior, just the way it is. And I know he was really looking for some redemption here. And Carson Wagner was probably another guy who came into the state tournament undefeated, was a returning state medalist, had been number one in the state all year, loses to Cale Nasdio from Williamsport, and then falls to Tyler Chappell in the consolation semifinal. So he was looking for some redemption, but really, it was Robinson who just looked so sharp and really, just strong. He looked strong for one day. It's hard to believe when I looked at him and, that they weighed 114. It was hard for me to believe that he was 108 at one time, because, he didn't look it. He looked really solid at 114 pounds. So I can't wait to see what the future has for him. And it seems like he's been around forever. But I know that was a really big win for him.
The third WPIAL wrestler came onto the mat at 152, Ty Linsenbigler of Hempfield area, taking on Nathan Higley. And the opening takedown went to Linsenbigler. It looked like he was going to control the match, but Higley got the reversal in the second period, then started to ride Linsenbigler pretty hard to keep the match at 2 after 2. And then Linsenbigler on the bottom to begin the third period gets the escape. And just like that, it's like, okay, it's a 3-2 match going back and forth. And then Higley hits a big move, takedown, 3 near fall points. A penalty point comes to Linsenbigler, but it's a 7-4 win for Higley. And Higley had a dominant third period to get the win.
He was one of the guys that I really wanted to see in this match was Higley. And, we had originally had John Altieri. He just was having trouble getting down to the weight. Ty Linsenbigler steps up big time. Takes the match, and he's a guy who I think these two wrestled a fun match. There was very a couple good scrambles in it, but those two just they put on a show, and I was impressed with them. I was really impressed with the way that Nathan Higley was able to ride Linsenbigler out. That was the one thing that we haven't quite seen a whole lot this year, was Ty Linsenbigler getting rode out, and Higley just looked really solid.
And that brought up our fourth WPIAL wrestler, Cole Spencer of Pine-Richland. We're going to talk to him in just a short while. But, boy, did he put on a show over Bailey Gimber of Hamburg. 2 takedowns in the first period. Gimber goes on the bottom in the second. Can't get out from underneath Spencer, so it's still 4-1. And then Cole Spencer gets an escape, a takedown, and 2 near fall points to get a major decision, 9-1.
He was just completely dominant, and I can't wait to talk to him in just a little bit. And, 9-1 over a very, very tough Bailey Gimber. And like you said, he just poured it on. And, let's not forget that he showed up, I think, with 4 matches until his match, because he was at an award ceremony. And, he only had, probably by the time he got his shoes on, got stretched out, he probably only had like really 3 full matches to warm up. It didn't look like he was cold. It didn't look like no. he was just in a car for 2.5 hours. He didn't wrestle like that, So maybe that's his his good luck there is riding the car, not really warming up a whole lot, and because it paid off well for him. He looked just really good against a tough Bailey Gimber.
And that brings our last two matchups, with which surprisingly I don't know about surprisingly, but yeah, I think a surprise to some. Both falls. Bassett, Bishop McCourt he was dominant in 3 total takedowns plus 3 near fall points before getting the fall over Davis Motika. And then Mason Gibson tosses Brennan Cernus on his back and gets the fall right at the 2-minute mark. And that's how we wrapped up the redemption.
It's crazy to think because, I expected Bo Bassett to go out and put up some points there, but and Davis Motika, he's very undersized. He's an undersized 106 pounder. But I think it just shows how darn good Bo Bassett really is. I mean, Bo Bassett is going to be. He may win a world title this year. I really do think that if he's the representative from Team USA, I think there's a really good chance that he wins a cadet world title because he's just on a different level. And that showed because Davis Motika he's a really good wrestler. He's one of the top guys in the state, one of the top freshmen in the state. We just haven't seen a whole lot of him. He is undersized, no doubt about it. But Bo Bassett he made it look easy, right? And that was it was just crazy to see how dominant he was. And we haven't really seen Bo tested a whole heck of a lot in the last couple of years, which is weird to say, but he's just been dominating people left and right. We did see him at the True Power against Nathan Desmond. It was kind of a back and forth match, but once he settled in, it was all Bo Bassett. And then in the final match, I talked to Coach Scott Green, and he's like, "Hey, this could go one or two ways. It could go really good or really bad." And they were in that kind of 50-50 position, and I'm thinking, well, here we are. Here we're about to find out which way it's going. It's either going to go really good or really bad, and that's what happened for Cernus. It just happened to be that he lost that battle and went to his back. But overall, Mason Gibson just completely loves. I mean, he just loves the limelight. He loves just being in the spotlight. He loves having just those all eyes on him, so to speak, and it showed because he came out and performed at a high level.
He did, no doubt about it, and gets the win for his team as well, because it was going a little bit back and forth for Team Green and Team Black. Team Green ends up winning 35-24, but 2 matches prior, it was 24-23. Black was leading Green, and in fact, it was up 24-19 Black before Cole Spencer and then Bassett and Gibson all win with bonus points. But early on, it was all Team Green where they were up 19-9. So overall, Jeff, I think you separated the teams pretty well too to keep it interesting till the end.
Well, thank you. I tried to mix it up as best we could, and like I said, there's, it was a fun card, man. A lot of good wrestlers, a lot of the coaches, the parents, everyone was just great to work with, and I can't wait to put on another event because we got the itch. We can't stop doing it, and who does it better, right? There's no one does it better than PA Power Wrestling, and that's just what we do, right? Kind of like Bo Nickel. That's what we do at Penn State. This is what we do at PA Power Wrestling. We just put on really good events, and I'm excited to continue the momentum rolling here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're going to see if we can get Cole Spencer on in just a little bit, but before we do, why don't we throw it to Nick Fuller of the Tactical Mind.
This is the Tactical Mind, and I work with athletes in the field of sports psychology as a cognitive performance coach. Within 5 minutes of talking to a parent, they make the connection right away that this would be great for my kid to have when they're in college, when they're just going through the ups and downs of high school. Who wouldn't benefit from having more self-awareness? Who wouldn't benefit from having the ability to self-regulate our emotions and our counterproductive thoughts? Who wouldn't benefit from having more optimism, not just on the field, but in life?
Don't forget to use promo code POWER to receive 50% off your initial consultation with Nick. Again, promo code POWER, POWER, to get 50% off your initial consultation. Joining us now is Cole Spencer of Pine-Richland. Cole, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Well, Cole, talk a little bit about your day on Saturday. I'm sure you didn't expect it to be that wild, but from beginning to end, you were a busy guy.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like I said in that interview after the match, like I committed to you guys wrestling at the Redemption Duel, and I thought it'd be later at night, but you guys said it was at 4 o'clock, and I knew I had that Willie Thrower banquet at it was like a luncheon, so it started at 12. And the guy said it would be over at 2, but it ran a lot later than that. And but luckily we were able to rush over to State College and make the match. But yeah, it was a wild day, but it was fun.
So I guess your secret is to just ride 2 hours in the car and then just get a couple-minute warm-up and then just get right into wrestling, because you were dominant on Saturday.
Yeah, honestly, it was just throw on the shoes, throw on the singlet. I warmed up with my brother a little bit in that back room, and then walk right out there. Don't have to think about it at all. Just go out and wrestle, and yeah, it worked.
Well, I appreciate, Cole, you're a man to your word, right? You said, hey, I'm going to wrestle in the Redemption. And I think at first I may have said it was going to be later in the evening. And then we found out, well, they had the C3 Sports had to set up for church the next day. So we had to be out of there by a certain time. So, I didn't really put 2 and 2 together. And then Dan Flickinger, who does Westmoreland Sports, is like, hey, there's a luncheon that we're streaming, and I'm pretty sure Cole Spencer's at it. And I'm like, oh boy, we could be in trouble. Tell us what was it? So what was it? What was the award ceremony, and what did you end up taking home? What was the award?
Yeah, so it was the Willie Thrower Award, and it was the first annual award for the certain award, and it's like the best WPIAL quarterback award. And so they asked all the coaches across like the WPIAL and all like the media members to select like your top 5 quarterbacks. And if you were like the number 1 that they picked, you got like 5 points. If number 2, 4, and like so on. And so yeah, I ended up with the most points out of all of that, and ended up winning the award. So it was like the best QB in the WPIAL. So yeah, it was a pretty prestigious award. Again, it was the first annual, and so it was pretty awesome being there with the Willie Thrower family and his wife and his, I think, 3 sons, and being able to talk with them. So it was a pretty cool experience.
And really, it kind of segues nice because, you start out in the morning getting a football award, and then you go right into wrestling and getting your hand raised. You go from cleats to a singlet, right? And that's kind of been the story of your career, right? You've been a high school quarterback, but you've been on the medal stand 3 times in Hershey. So, just talk us through how, especially because you guys had deep runs into the state tournament, right? You won what, 2 state titles, 2 team titles with Pine-Richland. So
I personally won 1. Yeah.
But you were there, long times into the postseason with the team. So, that sometimes can be a hindrance for especially wrestlers.
Yeah, it was tough balancing the 2. Like I said earlier, I mean, my freshman year, I was just on the freshman team. And so when I was a freshman, I wasn't any like varsity. And that's when we won, I guess they won the state title my freshman year. And they had a loaded senior class and loaded junior class. So that senior class left. They had obviously a star quarterback going to Notre Dame. And I was kind of like the next one up. And so after I took 8th at States my freshman year, it was really after that straight. I took off and played football, or like was practicing football, and then came back maybe the week of NHSCAs. And then after that, I didn't touch my shoes, touch a wrestling mat for 6-7 straight months. And because I was going against a senior trying to get that starting spot, and then ultimately did get the starting spot and went all the way to December and played the state semifinal game. And we ended up losing that game. And then coming back, going to my sophomore season, I was way out of shape, way fat. And because at that time I thought there was a chance of me playing football in college. I mean, I love football. At that time, I liked it more than wrestling. And I was like, oh, this might be what I'm doing. And then I didn't grow at all. So I was like, oh, I might have to change that a bit. So obviously it showed my sophomore year, not even making the state tournament. And then that next year, every Sunday, I think, throughout the football season, I was at wrestling practice. So it definitely made a lot of difference seeing where my future was.
And you kind of touched on it there where you said maybe that sophomore year you win the starting job over a senior, and you're thinking, okay, like, you saw the last guy who was starting, goes to Notre Dame, right? So how the footsteps you're following in. Was it at that point where you're like, I'm just not big enough to be, a Division I college football, quarterback? It had to be pretty hard. I mean, you get all these awards, everyone says Cole Spencer is one of the best, quarterbacks in the state. And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, like, okay, well, could you have gone and played football at another institution? And I'm sure the answer is yes, but how hard was that for you to kind of say like, all right, wrestling is the one that I'm going with?
Yeah, it was definitely tough because looking at the past 9 years at Pine-Richland High School, we've had 3 quarterbacks in the past 9 years. And the first one, he went to Pitt and he's playing for the Cowboys right now. And then the second one went to Notre Dame and he's now playing at Boston College. And then it was me. So there was a lot of hype leading up to me taking that over that starting job. And then I did stay 5'10". So, I mean, over the years, I was like, yeah, it looks like I'm going to be staying here. And so then I guess me on the wrestling path, I knew I could wrestle. I guess that was always my backup. I was like, if I don't grow, I'll be wrestling. And then whenever that like recruitment day is, so I was like getting a bunch of calls. I was actually at a football 7-on-7, and that morning I was getting a bunch of calls from all these colleges. And at that time, I saw like nobody was talking to me for football. And I was like, all right, that was kind of the turning point in me, knowing, all right, my future's wrestling. And so definitely took that a lot more seriously once I kind of realized that.
It's got to be different for you going into now the fall season where you're going to be wrestling all the time. You no longer have that football practice you kind of alluded to in the interview as well. So just talk about what a difference that's going to make as you head to University of Penn.
Yeah, like you guys mentioned in that the Willie Throw Award, the transition of football like cleats to wrestling shoes, that Willie Throw Award, I mentioned in my speech at the event that might be my last football award ever. And so that was kind of like my going away party, and then coming to wrestling with you guys, because like I even see the surge behind you, Jeff. I've never wrestled in any of that stuff.
Yeah,
Any summer wrestling events that you guys have put on over the summer, I haven't been able to do. And so it was kind of like I was putting my football cleats to bed and taking out the wrestling shoes for the next 4 years. And so yeah, I'm excited for the future, taking this 100% of the time, and I'm super excited to get up with Penn.
And talk about just Penn and what sets Penn apart. I know me personally, I'm a big fan of Penn. I love Roger Reyna. Brian Pearsall is a District 3 guy, which shout out Brian Pearsall. He just had a birth of his child, so congratulations to him and his wife. But, what was it about Penn that really stood out to you? Because you're going from, obviously, the Steel City. You're heading all the way out to the city of brotherly love. And, man, the Eagles? Really, the Eagles?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, in the beginning of the recruiting process, like I didn't think I was going to like Penn, and I got invited to like an ID camp out there, and I was like, the city, I don't know if I really want to go to a city and for school for the next 4 years. And then I got there and I love the city, and I didn't, because I don't really like go to Pittsburgh that much, except for like if I'm playing the WPIAL championship game at Hines, or I'm going to watch a game, or like even a show or something like that. But I loved Philly. I love the campus, and obviously the academics are crazy there, and especially Wharton. And business is what I've been wanting to do for a while now. And once I got the call that I was like, you're good for Wharton, I was like, yeah, it's a done deal. And on top of the academics, I mean, you got Roger Reyna, like you said, Brian Pearsall, Brandon Slay with the RTC, getting like guys like Mark Hall, Joey McKenna, David McFadden, Jordan Burroughs, possibly next 4 years. Those guys are all around my weight, and it's gonna be fun getting up with all those guys.
Well, it's been a lot of fun watching you over the wrestling career, Cole, and best of luck as you head into college. It's been again a lot of fun watching you throughout, and make sure you stay in touch with us as we continue to watch your seasons grow. Yeah,
thank you guys.
Cole, you're going to make a great flag football quarterback. All right, don't say you don't have awards coming to you. If we're ever having a pickup game, I want you on my team. So don't say you're not going to win any awards. All right.
Yeah, please call me. I'll be down. Whenever.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate it, Cole, and like Greg said, best of luck to you in the future, and we look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Cole. Cole Spencer kind enough to join us on the show. And Jeff, we talked about Cole's headed to Penn. We got some other commits going as well for the WPIAL. And you talk about Brown also picking up a pair of commits, the Burrow guys, Ian Oswalt and AJ Corrado.
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting with Ian Oswalt because, Stanford was one of his top schools. And of course, when they announced they're dropping their program, it kind of shifted his plans, right? And AJ Corrado was the first one to pick Brown, and then Ian goes in his path and follows that. And, it's just going to be great to see two Borough guys that, grew up together, wrestling together. Now they're going to go to college together. So I think that's always fun to see how these, careers kind of go on to the next level.
Yeah, you look at some other ones as well, as far as, Ivy League, Kenny Dushek. He's headed to Columbia. Tyler Simmerman. He's headed to Hofstra. So these guys are going to some big schools as they continue their wrestling career. Other WPIAL wrestlers, too, you got Joey Fisher. He's headed to Clarion. Also, John Altieri as well, headed there. And Shane Kemper, too, but he's playing football.
Yeah. So there's a lot of guys that are going for football in a variety of different, like Dylan Bennett from Montoursville. He's going to Pittsburgh, but he's playing football. There's a lot of guys that are going to Edinburgh playing football, like Mitch Miles. So there's, it's great to see that these guys are continuing their athletic careers, whether that's on the mat or on the gridiron. But as you mentioned, with John Altieri going to Clarion, there's quite a few Bucknell commits on our list of from class of 2021. Dylan Chappell, Antonio Emilio from Seneca Valley, two guys that are going to be going to Bucknell from the WPIAL at least. And Mason Prinky just signed with Clarion. That was a recent commit, so he'll be joining John Altieri there. Colin McCorkle from NA is also going to Clarion. Of course, he's from Arizona. Feel like we didn't get to see a whole lot of him because not only did we only see him for one season, but it was a very, condensed, reduced season. He didn't make it out of the super region, so not necessarily seeing a whole lot of him, but he's going to Clarion. He was a two-time Arizona State runner-up heading to Clarion, so very good pickup for him. Nate Stevenson's going to Davidson. Of course, a guy that's just been a journeyman for Waynesburg. Never really the star on Waynesburg, but always just a consistent guy who's always been there. And, of course, Wyatt Henson is going to Iowa. Luca Augustine is going to Pittsburgh. So just a lot of talent coming out of the WPIAL heading to not only Division I, Division II, Division III colleges. Ty Linsenbigler going to Lock Haven. I think that was a really good pickup for them. Mikey Zakor going to Mercyhurst. So, again, it goes all across the spectrum here, Greg, all across the board.
Yeah, and let's not forget our good friend AHR. He's headed to Oklahoma to continue his wrestling career. Justin Hart, he's headed to VMI. Hunter Swedish is even going to be wrestling as well at D3, W&J to keep wrestling as well. So just a number of WPIAL wrestlers continuing to wrestle on here in college. And I'm sure we may have missed a few as well as we're going through the list. But just so many WPIAL guys that are continuing on, which not very surprising considering how strong the WPIAL was this past year.
Yeah, you're right. It's not surprising, but in the days of COVID, it's kind of surprising just because if you weren't signed before this and it was hard to get on campus. I think back to like Costa Moore, he's going to NYU. He signed with NYU pretty early on. But imagine that. You're not going to be able to really go up to that campus, right? You're not going to be able to go up and check out and see what's going on. So, just the fact that a lot of these guys are able to commit to colleges. And we didn't mention the two studs from Hempfield. We mentioned Ty Linsenberg, but Isaiah Vance and Ethan Bergen both going to Army West Point. So, two guys that are just, one of the best, not only in the classroom, but on the mat, head into Army. Carter Dybert going down to Arizona State. I'm pretty jealous of Carter because Arizona State sounds really nice right now. But just a ton of WPIAL guys going all across the United States, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and there's still some WPIAL guys who are unsigned, right? The biggest one we already talked about in Sammy Starr. So, just a number of guys still out there right now in the event. Logan Harmon, another guy who remains unsigned. He had a heck of a postseason, bumping up in weight because he was originally at that 195 to go up to, or 189 to go up to 215. So he's another guy who should be getting a lot of looks right now, and we'll see where he ends up.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to be releasing the top uncommitted seniors from the class of 2021. Of course, that's from the entire state. But the WPIAL is going to have a number of wrestlers on there. It's hard to determine whether a kid is even A, interested in wrestling in college, or B, plans on going to traditional college. A lot of guys just, college is really expensive. So
might
you know,
want to go
look at
trade school. That's right.
yeah, right, or trade school of some sort. So I mean, you know, you look at a guy like Max Stedford. You know, Stedford is probably ended this, you know, his career top 10 in the state, over 100 wins. Garrett Thompson from Franklin Regional, same thing. You know, probably top 10, ended his in the ranking in the state. So a guy who beat Ty Linsenbigler, he's right there, man. Like he's definitely a guy who I think is going to benefit a team, whether that's D1, D2, or even Braden Roskowski from Kiski. You know, he hasn't committed yet. So a lot of guys here with a lot of potential that just, you know, hasn't been tapped yet. So I'm excited to see where some of these guys may end up.
And we'll make sure to keep you updated as they continue to go through. Make sure you follow PA Power on Twitter, as well as you know, throughout our website, because we want to make sure you know what's going on with the latest, and obviously through Rockfin as well. But usually it ends up on Twitter first if we find out. So we'll make sure you know, you got, and obviously if they share it, we'll make sure to retweet it out to you. So make sure you're following PA Power on Twitter to get all the latest updates on the recruits. And before long, Jeff, we're going to be talking about the 2022 commits and those coming up. It's, you know, those guys are making their decisions right now, and we got a number of guys here in the WPIAL who are coming into their senior year, and it's going to be exciting to see where they end up.
Yeah, there's a ton of recruits from out this way that I think are going to make some noise, and you know, Division I coaches are going to be calling like crazy for some of these guys, and you know, that's kind of always how it is, and you know, I don't think this year's going to be any different.
Well, I want to thank Cole Spencer of Pine-Richland for joining us. He's such a great interview. Really appreciate having him on. And Jeff, thanks to you, man. The redemption went off with a success, and was a lot of fun to be there to have that opportunity to be at the event. And we're excited to see what PA Power has in store for us here as we head through the rest of the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Be on the lookout because we're not stopping. Right, we're gonna keep on growing, keep on doing more, and we can't wait to do it.
And hopefully we'll have some more ups here before December comes around. I'm sure we'll have a few will pop in and out just to keep things updated throughout the rest of the off season. But for Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. Really appreciate you listening to WarUp on the WPIAL.